So yeah, hi everybody. Thank you so much for joining me today. My name's Sophie and I work in the Education Liaison and Outreach team at Middlesex University, and I've got Anjali who is supporting with this presentation, and Anjali works with me in the post-16 team. So it's really nice to see some faces today, and hopefully we can have a little bit of a discussion at the end if you've got any questions about anything that we've spoken about, and I'm also going to ask you some questions as well around kind of how you support your students with writing their personal statements. So this session should only go on for maybe 15 minutes, 20 minutes at the most, but it's really kind of small bite-sized kind of tips that we've put together for ways in which you can support your students to write their personal statements, and also ways in which that we can help you to support your classes with kind of writing their best personal statement that they can do. Obviously, it's quite topical because this is personal statement season, and the deadlines are fast approaching. So there's lots of resources that we'll be able to give you. I'll be able to put loads of things in the chat as well at the end. So yeah, you'll be given as much information as we can provide to you. But obviously, if you've got any questions, please just either pop it in the chat or you can unmute your mic and just ask away. So before we get started, I'll do some quick introductions. So I'm there in the middle. My name's Sophie, and then Anjali, who is kind of backstage in this capacity, also works with me in the Ed Liaison team, and we are in the post-16 branch of Education Liaison. We do also have a pre-16 branch. Working in post-16 again is also Natalie, my colleague. She's not here today, she's at a school fair. And then the person that looks after all of us is our manager, Nikki. And again, she's busy doing other things, but this is our team. So if you ever contact us for support with workshops, or you know, just to ask questions, or if you come to any of our events, we're the 4 people that you'll most likely be speaking to for all post-16 activity. So we are looking at personal statements. So I'll start very, very quickly talking about the sorts of things that we're looking for. But I know that students find it really, really difficult to get started writing their personal statement. That's one of the things when we go in and speak to them, they find it really, really difficult to structure their personal statement, to actually put pen to paper. They've got lots of ideas that they've got kind of running around their mind, but they just don't know how to structure it correctly. So this is the best structure that we suggest, and other universities will suggest this structure for writing a personal statement. The resources that we've put together take these elements and kind of, we've got a workbook that I'll speak a little bit more about, we've got a video, and we've got a workshop. They take these elements and we've kind of replicated them in all of the activities that we do. So this is something that you know, should be pretty easy for your students to kind of use in terms of the structure. So if we were to go through these elements, there are 5 of them. So we do suggest that students write more about their academic side, but when we say academic, we don't want them to put down their course that they're studying necessarily. We don't need them to tell us about their predicted grades. We don't need them to tell us that they are studying XYZ course. Admissions tutors and admissions staff will be able to see that when they actually look at their UCAS application. What they need to talk about in their academic side is actually why they want to study that particular course, why they're interested in it. This should be pretty easy for them to do. This should be the reasons why they're so passionate about going into that particular area of study, and should be something that they can do quite easy. Then they also need to talk about their school or college experience. And this is where we always see students putting down their predicted grades or telling us about the course that they're studying. Whereas most admissions tutors will know the courses, they'll know the modules that they're studying. What we need to see is actually how their school or college experience has prepared them for going to university. So breaking that question down, actually kind of what have they learned from their current studies? How do they feel this is going to help them progress when they actually go on to higher education? Particular projects or kind of tasks that they've enjoyed or really excelled in, or that's really inspired them to take that particular form of study or subject of study onto the higher level, and also what skills do they think that they've developed during the course of their studies, and actually how is that then going to be able to be transferred over to their study at university. We've also been talking a lot to students about the fact that they've had this virtual learning. So with virtual learning, they are probably the most prepared for going to university than any other kind of years before them. So the students that have applied to university during the pandemic are very well versed in versatility, determination. They've really increased in their kind of time management skills and their organizational skills, their self-study. All of those things are really relevant to going to university. And actually, they can talk about that experience, how they found it, how they've prepared themselves, what they've learned from that. And that can also kind of form part of their personal statement as well. And then looking also at if they're involved in any sports clubs or societies within school or college. So it doesn't just have to be sports. It can be, you know, maybe they're a prefect, or maybe they've taken on a position of responsibility. Maybe they've led in a change project at school or college, something that they may be passionate about that they also want to discuss. It shows levels of responsibility, all of that sort of stuff. So the academic stuff that they need to talk about takes up most of their personal statement. And then the non-academic stuff is really lovely because it gives them a chance to talk about them, and it gives the admissions tutors or the people reading their personal statement a chance to really get to know them. So then we're looking at their work experience or voluntary work. So have they gained skills from working part-time, working virtually, working voluntarily or paid? There's loads of great virtual work experience opportunities that are available to students, and I'm happy to pop information into the chat as well. But these can really, really benefit students when they're talking about, you know, what they've learned, what skills they've learned, kind of talking about why they're so passionate about that particular area of study, reaffirming that by showing that they've done some work experience as well, especially for things like health or veterinary sciences, or if you've got students that want to go into medicine or very competitive courses. Showing that they've got that work experience is vital in most cases for those areas. Because courses are competitive. So where students can show that they've also got some additional work experience, that's really, really beneficial. So also, again, anything outside of school or college that they've done. So this is a really good opportunity for the people reading the personal statement to get to know them. They don't know them, you know them very well, their friends and family know them extremely well, but the people reading their personal statement don't know them. So this is an opportunity for them to kind of show who they are, kind of make that relationship, build that connection, show that they're also interested in other things. Perhaps they're interested in drama, or they play music outside of school or college, or they're part of a sports club. It kind of gives them an opportunity to just show that they are an all-round person. They like to do other things, because going to university is about study, but it's also about the other experiences that they can get involved in. So this is a good opportunity to kind of put that information in as well. And then finally, the concluding statement. We always see that people start putting in new information in their concluding statement, and actually it needs to be extremely short, just wrapping up everything that they've spoken about. And if they find that their concluding statement is a bit too long, maybe they need to have a look again and kind of reevaluate where else they need to put that information in as part of their personal statement. So we've got do's and don'ts here, and these are really, really simple, but we always see that people, do one of these on the don'ts. We recommend that students start early and are prepared to do several drafts. Now, I know that that's really difficult in a school or college setting, where you maybe have to look at, a good amount of different personal statements. You're writing references for them. So we've got loads of ways that we can support you. But we do need to remind students that they do need to start early. So, end of year 12, you can start getting them to think about how they might start writing their personal statement, what courses they might actually want to apply for. And then they can just start putting pen to paper. They can make lists. And then from there, they can kind of formulate that into an actual draft moving forward. We see a lot that people aren't, or not dishonest, but they just embellish some of the things that they've been doing. And actually, in most cases, when you are applying for a university course, you may have to do an interview. And at that interview, admissions tutors will be having personal statements out. They will have read them and they might want to ask more about that. So it's very similar to obviously going to an interview. Whilst you may have done something, we encourage students to be honest about the things that they've done. Showing their enthusiasm, we've been reading loads of personal statements, and in some cases we see that people are quite negative in their personal statement. And whilst an experience may have been negative, actually, what did you learn? What did you gain? How did you spin that into a positive? And how will you use that learning to kind of further your knowledge moving forward? So it's about being enthusiastic. Courses are sometimes oversubscribed, and the personal statement is the thing that enables people to get shortlisted for interview or given a place on the course. If looking at two kind of applications, their predicted grades are the same and everything else about them is very, very similar, the personal statement is sometimes what can make a real difference. And on the don't side, making their personal statement too short. I've seen a couple of drafts recently where they've really only used half a page. They get 4,000 characters, 47 lines. It's about a page of A4, and they've used half of that. And they've not really expanded on kind of experiences that they've had. And it's just very, very short, and it doesn't really tell us anything about them. Often people will decide also to Google for interesting quotes or just list information, and that really doesn't bring anything to the actual personal statement. And often quotes are really, they don't really add anything. I've probably seen maybe one in my time of reading personal statements. I used to work in admissions, and yeah, probably one that was used really effectively. Most of the time it's just extra characters that could be used on talking about themselves in another way. And often we see that spelling and grammatical errors are you know, something that ruins the statement or spoils the statement, let's say. And I know that it's really difficult. We do often ask that teachers and advisors do look back at spelling and grammatical errors, but they can do that themselves just by putting it into Word or using a tool like Grammarly, something like that, to be able to just check that their spelling and grammar is correct. So there are people that read the personal statement. You know, I've been coming to schools very recently, the last month or so, and I asked them the question, you know, do you think someone reads your personal statement? Oftentimes students will say no, I don't think anyone's reading it. So, you know, why should I make an effort? They should, because people are reading their personal statement, especially for, you know, health courses, especially for veterinary courses, especially for the courses that get extremely oversubscribed. Personal statements are read, they're looked at again, but personal statements are looked at by somebody. It's not just a kind of blasé exercise where it's kind of tick box. They are read. It's a way for the university admission staff or even their future lecturers just to get to know them in a little bit of a better way. So we do need to remind them that their personal statement will be read. So there's a number of things that we can do. Obviously, we're here to promote the stuff that Middlesex does, but there are other things that other universities will also do, and they may have very similar options as well. So if you find that, you know, if you just do a little Google search, or you've got a couple of universities that you work with, just ask them the sorts of things that they can do to support your students. We've got a workshop and we have a workbook, and I'll pop that up on the screen in just a second. Our workbook brings all of those 5 areas that I spoke about at the start, and enables them to kind of put pen to paper. So we have those 5 questions, and within those 5 questions, we ask them even more questions. We've got useful phrases, some do's and don'ts, and it just gets them to think about the different areas within the structure and put pen to paper. It's an interactive tool. It can be used alongside a workshop that we do, which is a celebrity workshop. It's 20 minutes, sometimes 30 minutes if we've got lots of questions or we want to, you know, talk about some subject specific information. And the workshop itself we get them to help us write a personal statement. We've got 4 celebrities who are all applying for different areas, so different subjects, and we use each of those structure points to get them to pick between two different examples, and you can see that on the screen at the moment, which one they think would be the most suitable to put into the personal statement. And then we explain to them why we would choose one over the other. And sometimes we've got things in there like grammatical errors, or some other kind of information where they don't quite explain experience that they've had. And it just gets them really thinking about how they might word their personal statement. But also the workbook itself is a really, really good tool to use alongside that. We've also got a 5-minute workshop video. I won't show you that because I'm aware of time, and I don't want to keep you for too long. But the workshop video kind of takes all of the elements that we speak about in the main workshop, wraps it all up into 5 minutes, so that it's basically just a refresher for your students. And again, they can use it alongside the workbook. I'll pop all of these in the chat and you can have a look at them after. And then one of the things that's really, really nice is if we are not able to come in and do a kind of surgery with your students, we have an online statement checking service, which we've just put together this year. We did something similar last year, but it wasn't as kind of high tech. But now we've got a website where your students can input in their details. They can upload their personal statement, as you can see on the screen here. It will come through to us. We ourselves, so myself, Anjali, Natalie, Nikki, and our colleagues in the pre-16 team who are able to check personal statements, we look and we provide notes and annotations and feedback, very similar to how we would do in person, but we can send that back. We do have a turnaround time of 7 to 14 days, and our staff will vigorously check and be able to provide feedback to these students. So we provide feedback virtually, and I mean, they can send as many drafts through as they wish. Whereas when we run kind of surgeries, or schools ask us or colleges ask us to come in, we can only normally see that student once, because there's such high demand to have somebody read the personal statement. So this is a really, really good tool that can just be put on your Moodle pages or whatever the kind of intranet pages that you have. You can pop that on there along with the workbook, and students can email us or submit their personal statement through the web page, and we'll get back to them within, hopefully, normally a week, latest 2 weeks. And then there's just a couple of other things that you can do in terms of like preparing your students. So getting them to think about their personal statement. I said earlier, maybe the end of year 12, you can start doing this, just getting them to think about, what sort of things their subject area is looking for. So if they are applying for a health course, and I use health as an example because that's what we see quite a lot. I have attended quite a few workshops recently where the internal deadline for them to apply is very soon. And in some cases, I went to a school very recently, it's tomorrow. And there were some students who hadn't been able to get any work experience, but for the area that they want to go into, that is vital. And it's unfortunate because there's not much at this point we can do. We can suggest other virtual platforms for them, but they hadn't done enough research around the area that they wanted to go into. So an activity that can be done is just getting students to kind of research the course that they want to apply for, look at the course pages for the 5 universities that they think they might want to go to, or more, if they haven't quite narrowed down their 5 yet, and just get them looking at the kind of entry criteria, whether there is anything that they need to be aware of. For social work, there's particular competencies they have to demonstrate. For nursing midwifery, they have to, again, show particular competencies. If they're applying for a computer science course, do they need to be competent in a particular software? For dance, do they need to, show a portfolio? Drama, do they have to prepare a piece? All of that sort of stuff, just getting them thinking about it, because when they come back in September, that first term goes extremely quickly. And whilst the January deadline is now the end of January, most schools will have their internal deadlines, and I'm sure you have the same, in December, if not in November. So if they leave it that late, they may struggle to get work experience or be as prepared as they could be for kind of putting that information into their personal statement. So there's loads of examples that you can get online. I think UCAS have a couple of like example tools as well, for both good and bad personal statements, getting them to kind of work out what the good elements are in the personal statement and what the kind of not so good elements are, and then just getting them to understand that how they kind of formulate their writing is a really, really good kind of way to get them started on writing their personal statements. Also, getting them to kind of talk to you about what it is that they want to do, why they're so passionate. I found that actually sometimes people get like writer's block, and just asking them the questions, you know, why do you want to study that particular course? They then can be really, really eloquent with what they're saying. And actually that's all they needed to do was just kind of think it through in their head, say it out loud, and then put pen to paper, rather than kind of being bogged down having to write immediately. Just kind of getting them to think about how they might portray themselves to a university is really, really is a really good kind of thing that they can do initially. Yeah, if you've got any kind of space where you're able to check their personal statements, then that's really positive. I know a lot of the time you'll see personal statements for quite a few people, which is where universities come in. This is our job. We're more than happy to check personal statements. We're more than happy to run workshops for you. We're more than happy to answer questions about specific subject areas, or if students have like joint degrees, or if they're you know, just a little bit stuck, we're around. You know, reach out to us, and we'd be, you know, more than happy to kind of support in any way that we possibly can do. And really, you know, if there's anything that you need from us in terms of, you know, advice and guidance about particular subject areas, or kind of what admissions, you know, what we're looking for in terms of students, then just reach out to us, ask us. We can help you to kind of curate some sessions, or whatever it is that you might need from us. But that's it from me. I was going to ask you a question. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I'm going to just quickly show you the workbook, so you're able to see that and just see how it goes. We can send you workbooks. We're more than happy to get those across. So this is the personal statement checking tool, and I will pop in the chat the links for this, so you're more than welcome to share this with your students. So it just asks for a few details, just so we know kind of who they are. We can then send the information back to them. If they've got any kind of extenuating circumstances or anything they need us to know about, they can pop it in here. But they upload their personal statement in the top left-hand corner. Our 5-minute workshop video is on our YouTube page, and we've got a ton of different videos on YouTube. We've got previous workshops that can be played back to students. We've also got lots of teacher and advisor resources as well. And then this is the interactive personal statement booklet. This booklet's really, really helpful. They should, by the end of using this, be able to write their first draft. So we've got the do's and don'ts that I spoke about earlier with you. We've also got some useful phrases. So as an example, here's the first bit: why do you want to study this course? So that in itself is a question, but what we do is we break it down. So we ask them questions. So which course would you like to study? Why are you interested in studying that course? Why do you find this particular field interesting? Is there anything that's inspired you? What are your future aims and ambitions? Do you have a particular career in mind? We give them some useful phrases, some do's and don'ts, and we do that for all areas. And this is interactive. They can write in here, or we also have hard copy booklets that we can send out to you as well. You can pop them in your school library, and students can use them freely. And again, the same with work experience, with their school or college experience, and so on and so forth. There's loads of different kind of things to get them just thinking about how they might write their personal statement. So I'm going to hand over to you. It would be nice to hear kind of what your challenges are in terms of personal statements. What is it that you find most difficult when trying to support your students to write their personal statements? Is it just lack of time? Is it that they don't know what to write? Is it that they kind of get stuck on the initial stages? Do they just not understand the importance of it. You know, it would be really nice to hear kind of what challenges you have, and maybe how we can support you in any way that we can, really.
Okay, so I'm Joanne. Hi, everyone. I'm from Barking and Dagenham College. For me, I think with the students, it's about, like you said, it's about getting them to start the process. And they are always asking, well, how do I start it? What do I say? And they begin to talk about, like the same thing you were saying, I'm going through the same issue, in that when I say to them, speak about your course, speak about what you like about being at college and all of that, then they start to share things like, you know, what unit they achieved and what grade they achieved and all of that. So it's kind of steering them in the direction of trying to get out of them all the good qualities, all the abilities, all the things that they have. But as you know, as people, we find it hard to kind of praise ourselves or to talk well about ourselves. And that's the challenge, to get them to look beyond all of that and to talk about all the great things about them, and, you know, and what makes them want to choose the career path they're choosing.
Yeah, absolutely. That is a real thing, isn't it? Because you get told from such a young age, like, stop showing off, don't big yourself up too much. And actually, here is their opportunity to do that. But I mean, you know, we are increasingly seeing, we used to do lots of workshops for students in year 13, but actually over COVID, we were seeing more workshops for year 12s in the kind of last stages. So, you know, some sort of workshop around kind of just getting them to think about what it is that they might want to do. I know for some of them, even in their like last year of school or college, they're not 100% sure about what they want to do yet, which is fine. But for a large majority of them, they have an idea about what course they might want to study. And there is that, you know, we could, you know, there's exercises that can be run around kind of, what career do you want to do? Why do you want to do it? What's inspired you? And just get them kind of talking, as opposed to feeling the pressure of having to write. Because I feel like it's their first piece of academic writing. So it is intimidating for them. And I think sometimes it's a bit overwhelming because they feel like they have to do this massive essay in such a little time or in such a short time. But doing some exercises around kind of, you know, what is it you want to do and why? And then, you know, providing examples, pulling out transferable skills. We also see that sometimes students will say, well, I haven't done anything. And actually they have, even in their, you know, school or college work, they might have done a project. So, you know, people can still get into university without any work experience. They just need to phrase the stuff they've done in school or college, or in their outside, you know, outside of school or college, in a way that really pulls those transferable skills. It could be that they've done retail work from 10 years ago. The university doesn't need to know that it was 10 years ago. The student doesn't need to put that in there. They just need to say, I'm able to communicate with a vast range of people through, and I can demonstrate this because I worked in retail where I spoke with people from all different backgrounds, all different ages, and provide the example as to kind of what they did. But people forget that some of the experiences that they've had are really valid to going to university. Team working skills, you know, time management, organization, all of those things. There is sometimes a good exercise around kind of just picking out those those transferable skills, so that they've already got those in their mind when they start writing. But yeah, I can understand it's extremely difficult
Thanks
for
for that.
them.
Thank you.
No, it's fine.